All right, welcome everyone. My name is Rachel Izagiri with Plano Public Library, and I want to thank you all for joining us for personal safety for college-bound students with Plano Police. Since you're all muted, if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat. We're going to be monitoring the chat to ask your questions for you and assist you with any issues if you have any technical issues. We'll also be sure to leave time for questions at the end. Some reminders that we just want to share with everyone. This program is streaming over on the Plano Public Library YouTube channel as well, and a recording will be available later this week. And then soliciting business or selling merchandise during library virtual programs is prohibited, so please show respect for our presenter and one another throughout the program. So let me begin with a question. Would you like to know how criminals select their targets and what you can do to reduce the odds of being the next victim? If you answered yes to that question, you're in the right place. Our speaker today has been a police officer for over 24 years. For the past 14 years, his full-time assignment has been in the Crime Prevention Unit, providing people with safety education to protect themselves, their families, and their property. Helping us today with our personal safety, please join me in welcoming from the Plano Police Department, certified speaking professional, certified crime prevention specialist, and back-flipping popo, Officer Chris Bianez.
Imagine you leave your class to go home. Let's say you're a college freshman. You call your friend. You say, I'm on my way back, except you never make it home alive. That was the heartbreaking reality for a University of Texas at Austin student. Here is a news report about what happened to Haruka Weiser.
Also in Texas today, a homeless teenager was arrested for the murder of a freshman at the University of Texas in Austin. David Begnaud is there.
Police say the figure seen on this surveillance tape is Mikhail Kreiner, a homeless 17-year-old seen walking through the UT Austin campus on the same night the victim went missing. Police officials say at 9:38 p.m. Sunday night, the suspect followed the victim, who was seen looking down at her cell phone. Kreiner has been charged with the murder of 18-year-old Haruka Weiser. Art Acevedo is Austin's police chief.
We saw things in that camera that connected him to this crime, and from there we went and picked him up, and here we are.
Do you have a confession?
I'm not going to talk about confessions.
The chief insists the murder was random. Weiser was last seen on campus Sunday night. Monday, she was reported missing. Tuesday, her body was found in this creek. Thursday, police released the surveillance tape.
How quickly after the video came out did you get that call from the fire department saying we might know who that guy is?
Right away.
The chief says Kreiner had set fire to some of Weiser's property to destroy evidence. Not knowing he was a murder suspect then, police transported him to a homeless shelter. As soon as firefighters saw the surveillance tape, they called in the crucial tip. Weiser's murder has shocked this campus of 50,000 students. She was a dancer from Portland. Charles O. Anderson was one of her instructors.
I can't help but be angry and saddened at the loss of a brilliant talent.
Now more about the suspect. He ran away from home last year. His grandmother tells CBS affiliate KSLA he had been under psychiatric care since he was a child. JB, she also said he was a well-mannered kid, but if you made him mad, he'd snap.
David Begnaud, thank you so much.
The tragic and senseless murder of Haruka Weiser is a sober reminder that bad things can happen to good people, and that random acts of violence can and do happen on and around college campuses. If you're going to invest the time to tune in, thank goodness this topic is something important to you, and especially important for those who love and care about you, because this program is about personal safety for college-bound students. Now, if I only had enough time to share one thought on this topic, this would be the message to remember. The best thing that you could do to keep yourself safe is to trust your intuition. Ooh, let me say that again. Best thing you could do is trust your intuition. But we have a little more time tonight. So here's our format. We're going to talk about how to tell if someone's safe or dangerous. We're going to talk about safe practices that you can use on and off campuses. And we're going to discuss how criminals select their targets and what you could do to not be selected as the next victim. So first, I have to give you a disclaimer, because some of the things we're going to talk about tonight is scary, because the world is a dangerous place. But if you walk out of here tonight, when you log off, if you feel like this, in other words, if you're more afraid than when you logged on, we've kind of failed you with our objective. The objective tonight is that you will walk away with a deeper awareness, particularly around safe things that you can do to increase the chance that you will be safe, and also empower you with some rules and strategies to greatly increase your safety when you log off and for the rest of your life. So, I do have an alarming statistic. I read that 1 out of every 6 women will be sexually assaulted during her lifetime, and that college-age young women are 4 times as likely as any other age group. For young men, the statistic was 1 in 33. And so we need to realize this is a topic that is of great concern, and I want to thank the Plano Library for making it possible. A big thank you. I first reached out to Kristen Lynn Scott, and she agreed to partner with me to bring some important safety information. And Rachel, she does all our behind the scenes connecting here. And I guess we've also got to help her here today. She's got a tech person on there. So thank you for all they do. For that. And a big thank you to you. I know there's so many more things that you could be doing with your time. And I appreciate you taking the time tonight. And we're going to give you some good information that will definitely increase your safety. And as they mentioned earlier, Rachel told you, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Do that as you go along. So that way, when we stop to take questions, we'll be able to grab those. Now, some of you may be thinking, man, I've seen this officer someplace before. I just can't place it. Well, it could have been way back in your elementary school days when me and Sergeant Lindy Privet brought a program called High Flying Excitement and a Knockout Message. Let's take a look. Let's try that again. I will never get tired of seeing those happy elementary school faces. And likewise, I will never get tired of sharing some information to help keep you safe. Now, you're probably aware that parents and students sometimes have different views of college. You probably heard that song, I Love College, where they say, I love college and I love drinking. And in fact, they even have some lyrics in there about freshmen. It says like, freshmen, do something crazy, do something crazy. Now, see, parents are just the opposite. They're thinking, no, do something smart, like get an education. So I think one thing that will help you stay safe is if you will remember that this is not what your parents have in mind for when you're off to college. In fact, if you will begin with the end in mind. Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, this is his first habit. begin with the end in mind. So if you will really zero in on why are you going to college? If I asked you, if you only could accomplish one thing, what would it be? You probably would say, well, graduate. And so that's a good thing. And so ask yourself as you're doing things, this acronym WIN, what's important now? And if you'll always ask yourself what's important now, with all the quizzes and the tests and things coming up, you'll keep busy with your studies and stay out of a lot of trouble. I dropped my daughter off just a couple of years ago. She's going back for her 3rd year over at Baylor. And we had a lot of conversations about safety. And I worry about her. I know your parents going to worry about you. So let's test your knowledge. How many of you think that you can tell if someone's safe or dangerous? If you will go to the chat, type in yes if you can tell if someone's safe or dangerous, or no if you cannot. And we got a minute on the clock, and I'm going to watch the chat. Go ahead. All right, let's see what you guys are coming up with now. What are you saying? Got to get this chat going here. Okay. Oh, Sharon says no. Natalie Cox has got, she says yes. Okay, yes, most of the time. Who else is out there? I know we got more people. We got about 20 of you on there. Most of the time, sister. Well, okay. So some people said yes sometimes. Some said no. And this is really important because whether you thought you could tell something, if you thought I can tell if someone's safe or dangerous, that could be one of the most dangerous thoughts you've ever entertained, because countless young people have paid the ultimate price with their lives thinking that someone was safe when in fact the person was dangerous. And so safety rule number 1 is this: you cannot tell if someone is safe or dangerous by looking at them. And my first exhibit for this argument is this dude right here. Robert Theodore Caldwell, also known as Ted Bundy. Now, in the book, The Stranger Beside Me, Ann Rule described him as the perfect son, the perfect student, the Boy Scout raised to adulthood, the bright light in the future of the Republican Party, a young man for whom the future could only hold success. She said you could not look at his record and think he would turn out that way. In fact, it was incomprehensible. She worked with him at the Suicide Crisis Center, and he would take calls with people thinking about killing themselves, and with love and compassion, keep them on the phone until the emergency responders arrived. And then in the early morning hours, he would walk Ann to her car and say, Ann, listen, lock your doors and don't talk to strangers. I don't want anything to happen to you. Can you imagine one of the worst serial killers walking her? She was so fooled. She used to think that if she was a little younger, or if her daughters were a little older, this has got to be the perfect man. But she wasn't the only one fooled. Ted Bundy had a long-term girlfriend, Meg Andrews, who wrote a book called The Phantom Prince because she thought she was dating Prince Charming. But they weren't the only ones fooled. These young women paid the ultimate price, and many of them were college young women. He would go up on the college campuses and knock them unconscious and take them and do terrible things to them. And at least we know over 30 young women paid the price. Now, I used to believe that personal safety was really a young woman's or a woman's topic. And then my research led me to a creepy guy named John Wayne Gacy. Now, John Wayne Gacy was somebody who was so respected in the community that people would come, police officers and the chief of police would come to his theme parties. And they said that if you ever needed anything, if you needed construction work, he'd do it for you. You need a trash can, he'd get it for you. He was just such a helpful person. And he would go to the children's hospitals and put on clowns shows called Pogo the Clown. Now, later, he became known as the Killer Clown, because what they found was 29 teenage boys and young men buried in the crawl space of his house. And so Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy are just a couple that are excellent examples that you cannot tell if someone's safe or dangerous by looking at them. If that's true, and believe me, it is, well, the question is, of course, then how can you be safe? And that's what I want to see what you come up with right now. So put your heads together, go to the chat and type in, What are some things that you can do to increase your safety, since we can't tell if someone's safe or dangerous? Get ready. We got a minute on the clock. Get ready, get set, and go. All right, I'm going to check out what you guys came up with here. Oh, yeah, I'm seeing some good things here. Be aware and learn some self-defense. Keep your head on a swivel. Don't share too much information. Learn Kung Fu. Man, that's so good. And I can start doing the happy dance because I've got some smart peeps up on this thing. What else? I know we got more people out there. What can you do? What can you do to keep yourself safe? Oh, don't assume that you can trust everyone. Oh, yes, like I said, I can do the happy dance because you guys had some good stuff there, and that's exactly right. So those are some things that you can do. In fact, that one about being aware of your surroundings, you're going to find out that is research-based, and that's one of the strategies that you could reduce the chance a criminal would pick you in the first place. Okay, so safety rule number 2. Because of safety rule number 1, which was you couldn't tell if someone's safe or dangerous by looking at them, we need safety rule number 2. And here it is. Whoop, there it is. My safety first, his feelings last. The last thing I want you worrying about is hurting someone's feeling. Believe me, if we're going to weigh your safety versus someone's feelings, we're going to always err on the side of your safety. And a great example comes from the Bundy files. In 1972, 40,000 people were on the beach in Lake Sammamish, and Ted Bundy walks up to this girl, Janet Ott, with a cast on his arm and a sling. Now, listen, ladies, he didn't have a broken arm, but he had a throwdown cast to make you feel sorry for him. And he asked her if she would help him put his sailboat on his car. Now, to give her some credit, according to the witness surrounding her that day, at first she declined, but after a while, the Bundy charm prevailed because she invited Ted Bundy to sit down on her blanket with her. And then after some easy conversation, she agreed to help him. She walked off with Ted Bundy, and no one saw Janice alive again. Now, you would think taking a beautiful young lady like Janice Ott and doing the god-awful things he did to her, you would think that would be enough in the day's life of a serial killer. But then again, this is Ted Bundy. 4 hours later, comes back to the same beach and takes her, Denise Nasland. Denise was there with her boyfriend and another couple. She had fallen asleep in the sun, and when she woke up, she needed to use the restroom. She took her dog with her. Her dog came back. Denise never did. Now, either on the way to the restroom or on the way back, she ran into Ted Bundy. And we know that because of a guy named Elsie Hammonds, who was up in the mountains, and he came up across some skeletal remains. And sadly, they were the remains of Janice, Denise, and a third Bundy victim. Now, what were these two young ladies trying to do that got them killed? Right. They were trying to be helpful, or they were trying to be nice. The problem is you can't tell if someone's safe or dangerous by looking at them. So you have to be careful when you're being helpful. And I'm not saying don't be a nice person, don't be helpful. I think the takeaway lesson from Bundy is this: do not let someone isolate you. So if someone drops their books on campus like Bundy used to do, he'd walk along on the college campus. He'd be on crutches and a cast on his foot. Again, ladies, no broken leg, but just a trick to make you feel sorry for him. You see all these books and you're like, oh, look at the poor guy. He's well-dressed, well-spoken, actually was a law student. So it looked like a safe bet, but no, that's what he's going to try to do, is look safe and look kind of helpless. And so what he would do is people would pick up his books and carry it to his car. And once they got to the car, he'd say, oh, if you don't mind, just put it on the passenger seat. And then he would get the crowbar and bam, knock them unconscious, and then put them in there, handcuff them inside the car, and drive them up the mountains and kill them. And that's when the relationship began. And he would come back over and over, put lipstick on them and makeup and wash their, and that. I mean, those of you that can stomach that thing, you could read The Stranger Beside Me, but some people can't take those kind of details. So I'm going to omit that for your, mind sanity, but realize that you don't want someone to be able to do this. So my safety first, his feelings last. When someone wants to take you, can you come over to my car? The answer is no. If someone drops their books and there's people around, you want to help them pick up the books? No problem. That's great. But don't walk off with someone that you don't know, even if they look like they have a cast or a sling, because people are doing that now because they know it worked for Bundy. And we got people who do copycat crimes and people do fall for it. So we need to be aware of that. Okay. So I want you to go to the chat this time, and then someone pulls a gun and they say to you, give me your purse or give me your wallet. What would you do? I'm going to watch the chat. We got, I think, a minute or 30 seconds and go. All right, let's see what you guys are coming up with here. Oh, man, this person said, fascists, give it. Yell really loud and get attention. Give it to them, says Tamari. Throw it at them and run the other way. Give it to them, says Katie. Natalie says, I will probably scream. Give it to them, Sharon. Give it what they want and yell and run. Woo! Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm happy dancing. That's exactly right. I'm going to go ahead and stop that because y'all too smart. So, yes, what you want to do is surrender property immediately. You don't want to be like that Dallas cab driver. Guy walked up, a robber pointed a gun, said, give me your wallet. And instead, the cab driver starts fighting with the guy, ends up getting shot in the abdomen twice. Now, I don't think the person who was trying to rob him really planned on shooting him. So he runs off, doesn't even take the time to take the wallet with him. When the police got there and they opened the wallet, they found $7. Now, listen, I don't care if you have $7 or $7,000. There's no amount of money or property worth your life. So I agree with those in the chat. We're going to surrender property immediately. Do not get yourself in a harmful situation. Now, let's say that we're going to change just one thing now. This time, the guy comes up, pulls a gun. Oh, that reminds me of something. Remember when I said you couldn't tell if someone's safe or dangerous by looking at them? Well, there is an exception. If the person has a gun, guess what? The mystery has been solved. We now know for sure that's a dangerous criminal because they have a deadly weapon. So now the person has a deadly weapon. They point it at you. And instead of saying, give me your wallet or give me your purse, he says, get into the car. I want you to type in really quick. What are you going to do in a situation like that? Go. What are you going to do? Let's see what you come up with. Run away. Use karate on them. Scream. Do not get in the car. Run away, says Natalie. Listen, but also scream to get attention. Faint. Oh, you just remind me, Kelly, of a fainting story. I need to remember to tell you this fainting story. All right, anybody else? What else would you do? I learned from you at conference, never leave location 1. Oh, Catherine, welcome back. You are right. Pretend to faint. Woo! Man, we got smart peeps in the house, man. They are tearing it up tonight. Woo! Oh, sorry, I got a little carried away. Yes, you are right. I didn't say anybody. Not one person that I saw in the chat said, get into the car. You are so right. Let me tell you a quick story about fainting. There was this lady in one of my seminars once, and she said, Officer Bianez, can I tell you what happened to me? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, I was putting my groceries in my car, and I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings. I know I should have been, but I wasn't. And I turned around. There was a man with a knife, and he said, get in the car. She goes, and so she goes, I looked at the knife. She goes, and I fainted. I said, oh, dear, you fainted? She goes, no, I didn't really faint. I pretended to faint. I said, oh, that's funny. So what happened? He starts going, get up, get up. I said, what'd you do? She goes, pretend like I was out. I said, then what happened? She goes, he kicked me in the stomach. I said, did it hurt? She goes, what do you think? I said, well, what'd you do? She goes, I just act like I was out. And then she said the man tried to pick her up. But she said, you know how you can make your body like dead weight? So she was being as heavy as she possibly could. And he was really struggling trying to pick her up. And then finally, she feels her body start coming off the ground. And then she said she acted like she was just waking up and pushed his face and fell back onto the floor. He had to start all over. Instead, he grabbed his knife and he ran off. And I thought, genius. And that's why I can't tell you exactly what you're going to do. You know, it used to frustrate me, like as a police officer, we have the use of force policy. And what they say in the policy is there's too many variables of all things that can happen. So as a police officer, I want them to tell me, when I was early in my days, I wanted them to tell me, okay, if this happens, you do this. And if they do this, then you do that. I wanted exactly the exact detail, but they couldn't do it. They said, we can't tell you what you're going to do, but we'll tell you what you're not going to do. And what they told me was that, and they told these officers, you may not use any more force than's necessary to effect the lawful arrest. So they don't tell me what to do, but they tell me I cannot use any more force except lawfully to effect that arrest. And I have to tell you the same thing. I can't tell you what you're going to do, but I'll tell you what you're not going to do. You're not going to leave crime scene number 1 because crime scene number 2 is going to be worse. And that is your next safety rule. Safety rule number 3, never leave crime scene number 1 because crime scene number 2 is going to be worse. The reason the person needs to take you to a second location is the evil things they have in mind to do to you, they can't do here. They want to take you where no one's around, where you will be the focus of the crime. Nobody will be able to hear you scream. And so I ask people in the audience, usually I'm pretty good. I'll go up and I'll say, get in the car. What are you going to do? And the person says, get in the car. And then I tell them, no. And I tell them this rule. And then I ask, why'd you get in the car? And the person says, I didn't want to die. And so if you don't want to die, boy, don't ever forget this rule. Because if you leave crime scene number 1 and you go to crime scene number 2, the statistic I saw was 85% chance you're dead. Your greatest chance of survival is right here. And it reminds me of a lady named Zoe Hastings. She was 18 years old. She was about to go off to college, but actually first she was going to serve a mission for a church. And in this media interview, her father was telling a story, just how thoughtful that she was. He said she had reached out to the mail carrier and asked the person what kind of treats the person liked, because on special occasions or just times she thought about him, she wanted to make sure whatever she gave him would be something he enjoyed. And they said she never complained about watching her younger brothers and sisters because she truly loved people. And she was about to go serve that mission at her church, but she stopped off in Dallas to return a red box video. After dropping the video in the box, she was headed back to her vehicle, and a man stopped her and had a brief conversation with her. And then when she got to her vehicle, according to the witness, the door was like that far from being shut when that same guy pulled it open. So the witness, being very concerned for Zoe, watched carefully to see what was going to happen. And what happened was Zoe just moved over into the passenger seat, and then that man got into the driver's seat, started backing the vehicle up, and the witness thought, well, they must be boyfriend and girlfriend. But Zoe never made it to the church. And when she failed to come home, her parents got worried and they called 911, and the official search began. Tragically, a parent's worst nightmare was realized when they found her van the next day down in this ravine. Zoe's body was laying outside of the vehicle. The initial police report stated she died of obvious homicidal violence, but we also know that there was a sexual assault because this man, Antonio Cochran, was arrested and he ended up being sentenced to life for the sexual assault and the murder of Zoe Hastings. Now, when you consider this, where was crime scene number 1? Right, it was Walgreens. Now, what was it that made this safer than crime scene number 2? Yes, she's got witnesses. Where was crime scene number 2? Right, down in the ravine. And what makes crime scene number 2 much more dangerous than crime scene number one. You are isolated. So you do not want to let someone take you to a second location. And when I heard that 1 out of 6 women were sexually assaulted in their lifetime, I started a personal study of sexual assaults in Plano, Texas. And I came across a second category, attempted sexual assaults. And I found something fascinating. Each and every attempted sexual assault had something in common with that separated it from an actual sexual assault. And you know what it was? Some type of resistance. The person fought, the person screamed, they fell to the floor. In other words, they didn't go along with the program. In fact, if a person tells you don't scream, you should think to yourself, oh, thanks for reminding me. Ah! And then scream your head off. It's kind of like opposite day. Whatever they're asking you to do, you probably should do the opposite, because anything you do is going to be to your detriment and to what they want to do to accomplish the crime on you. So,
Robin, this next story, every parent with little kids has to watch this.
You got that right, George, because it is a big act of bravery from a little girl, all caught on surveillance camera. A 7-year-old
out there who thinks to themselves, man, what do I do if the person's bigger than me? I can't fight off a grown man who's all big and muscled up. Yes, you can. And to give you a little inspiration, we're going to listen to a story of a 7-year-old girl, Brittany Baxter, who was left in the toy aisle when her mom went to the next aisle. And listen, future moms, don't do that. And let's hear how she gets away from the suspect.
Robin, this next story, every parent with little kids has to watch this.
You got that right, George, because it is a big act of bravery from a little girl, all caught on surveillance camera. A 7-year-old left alone for just a moment. Her mother was just a couple of aisles over in Walmart, and she was almost abducted. ABC's Yunji Denise joins us live from Atlanta this morning, and you heard what George said. Parents are going to be watching this with great interest. Yunji.
Absolutely, Robin. The video is stunning. A little girl fighting a grown man, allegedly trying to kidnap her, but she scared him off and saved herself. It happened so fast. You can see the man grab 7-year-old Brittany Baxter, trying to carry her out of the Walmart toy aisle.
He just grabbed me.
It was just about 24 hours ago when Brittany, out sick from school, was shopping with her mom, who stepped away to grab some fruit, leaving her daughter to play in the toy aisle. That's when store cameras captured this man snatching Brittany, but the second grader put up a fight.
I was screaming and kicking him, trying to get away. He put his hand over my mouth.
Wow, and then what happened?
And then he just dropped me and went and ran off.
As the suspect left the store, surveillance cameras captured him getting into his car. Police put out an alert, and within an hour, they made an arrest. Police arrested 25-year-old Thomas Woods, who was recently released from state prison, out on parole for manslaughter.
It didn't bother nobody. I was never there.
The Baxters are shaken but thankful.
I'm very proud of her. I'm just thank the Lord that she got away.
I'm still scared to death, and now I'm thinking I'll never be able to let her out of my sight, even for a second.
And this brave 7-year-old has some good advice for what to do when a stranger approaches.
Always scream, try to scream and kick as hard as you can, and go get somebody that you trust.
That's right, Brittany. Now, that's some good advice from a survivor. She did not become a victim because she did what I told you. She refused to leave crime scene number one. And I don't think she knows as much as you know, just from what we discussed, how bad crime scene number 2 is going to be. A 7-year-old, stranger danger class, probably not taking the deep dive that we're doing, talking about Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and those real scary serial killers. So you have more information than Brittany does. The question is, will you have enough determination and enough commitment to be brave like her and fight that person off? You should do that, because you should never leave crime scene number 1, because crime scene number 2 is going to be worse. With that, we're going to see what we got in terms of questions. So, Rachel, how are we doing?
We're doing all right. No questions so far.
questions? All right. I'm going to just pause for station identification and see if anyone wants to throw one in real quick. Any questions from me about anything we discussed so far? I am going to be talking about what you can do to reduce the chance a criminal would pick you to be a target. So we'll be covering that topic in just a minute, and some other safe practices that you can do on and about the campus. But any questions for me? And usually I get the question about, you guys like donuts and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's probably one of the most challenging things as an officer, is pretending you're hearing that donut joke for the first time. But since we have no questions, if you do have them, go ahead and throw them in and we will get to them.
We did just get one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Should one carry mace or pepper spray?
Oh, well, that's going to be a personal decision. And I'm going to tell you a pepper spray story. Well, I've got a slide. This is pepper spray. And so we'll address that in just coming up. But I think I would like to have you have something to defend yourself. So I would say absolutely, something, pepper spray has been very effective. And I'll tell you a story about that. Okay, let's talk about 3 strategies to reduce the chance a criminal would pick you in the first place. So there was a study that was published in Psychology Today. It was called Marked for Mayhem. And what they wanted to find out was, how do criminals select their victims? And so they went into a high security prison with violent offenders, rapists, robbers, and murderers. And they asked them, how do you select your victims? Now, they couldn't take them out in public. It would be too dangerous. So they did the next best thing. They brought in some videotape footage, New York City during the day with lots of pedestrian traffic, and would ask the convicts, who would you pick? And what surprised the researchers was, within seconds, they would say who they were likely to pick. And then they would bring in another convict who'd pick the same person. And another convict would pick the same person. And they'd say, what about this woman? Nah, not that one. How come? That person would fight you. Really? Why do you say that? And what they found out was that these criminals that we as people, we set off these things called precipitators, which are nonverbal cues that criminals pick up on to determine whether or not we would be a good person to target. And it's not based on what you might think. One thing that they did look for was people who were distracted. People who were distracted and dragged their feet and shuffled along were picked much more frequently than someone who was paying attention. And so what these criminals are looking for in 2 words: easy targets. Now, if you don't want to be a victim, don't look like a victim. Well, what do the victims look like? According to the criminals, distracted, not paying attention to their surroundings. They looked like they shuffled along, didn't walk with a purpose. Those people who walked fast and fluid were not selected. If I could tell you one word, the type of person that these big bad criminals did not want to mess with, that would be assertive types or confident types. So what are they looking for? Passive, weak, people who avert their eyes and don't make eye contact. Sometimes it's confusing. They think you're afraid. So I ask women, why do you do that? Why do you avert your eyes and avoid the eye contact with the lone male passing by you? And they say, well, because I don't want to engage. I don't want the person to think I'm open to conversation. Well, that's fine. But what if a criminal thinks you're scared? If they think you're scared and you're an easy target, you're more likely to get picked. So I'm going to tell you, as your safety advisor here, that it's better for your safety and security to make eye contact. You don't have to stare them down, give them the stink eye. You could actually smile and say, good evening. But I'd be thinking, now that you know they're looking for easy targets, I'd be thinking, I see you and I'm not your victim. Hello. Like, don't even try it. I will rip you away. So that type of assertiveness and confidence. So here's your first strategy. And I couldn't get it to one point. I had to make 2 parts of this. Your first strategy to reduce the chance a criminal would pick you is to be aware of your surroundings and project confidence. My second strategy I have for you is what I said I would hang the whole program on. And that second strategy is to Trust your intuition. Now, some people call this women's intuition. Other people call it a gut feeling. In the book, The Gift of Fear, Gavin de Becker describes your intuition as your ability to know without knowing why. It's like your ability to go from A all the way to Z without stopping at the other letters along the way. And it's your internal warning system. Think about times in your life where you didn't like a person from the word go, and someone called you on it. You don't like that person, do you? No, I do not. Why? I just don't. And you couldn't articulate it at the time because you didn't have any data. But later on, when the information came in, wow, were you right about that person? How did you know? That was your intuition. Your intuition can tell you things that you can't figure out on your own. The key is learning to trust your intuition. And there was a young lady at a college campus one day that her life, I don't know if she knew it. She didn't know it at first, but later when the reports of Ted Bundy came out and they found out who it was, she came forward and shared her story. Ted Bundy was on a college campus on the crutches. And he asked her, he says, hey, can you help me? He dropped his books, asked her for help. She looked at Bundy and she said no. And she walked away. She said she saw evil coming from this man's eyes. Well, what was that? That was her intuition. Her intuition saved her life. And your intuition can save your life. And so learn to trust your intuition. And your third strategy to reduce the chance a criminal would pick you is to immediately call 911 to report any suspicious person, vehicle, or circumstance. This is something that people are just afraid to do. I think when we talked about calling 911, hey, this is only for emergencies, only call if it's an emergency. We might have oversold that to the public because people are downright afraid to call 911. If they have a real emergency, someone says, call 911, it's like, I'm not calling, you call. I mean, they're really scared to call 911, and that shouldn't be the case. So we had a situation where a woman, she saw someone, she instantly had a bad feeling. She walked out of a gas station, sees this guy coming off of a sidewalk, and instantly had a bad feeling. So what she did was avoided eye contact and walked to her car. Good idea or bad idea? Right, bad idea. She should have kept the eye contact because she wasn't even able to see him come running up on her. Next thing that she knows, he pulls a knife on her, says, get in the car. And so what should she do? Well, she got in the car and he tells her where to drive and he ends up sexually assaulting her. Now, the only good part of this is two good things happened in this scenario that could have gone much worse. Was that one, he let her go. And she's really lucky. A lot of people are not that lucky. The second thing was he accidentally dropped his wallet on the passenger seat of the car. And that's true. We made arrest that evening with this suspect. But the bad news is she went through something that is just horrific and we wish that she wouldn't have had to do. And when the officer asked her, hey, if you instantly had a bad feeling about this guy, why didn't you just go back in the store and call 911? And what she said was heartbreaking. She says, I didn't want to waste a police officer's time. And I'm like, really? What do you think? Every officer I know, we all raised our arms to the square and we swore to protect your life and you protect your property. So please let us do our job. And don't you dare take any chances with your personal safety. You are invaluable to your family and your friends and your community. So don't do it. If you see something like that, you go back in and you call 911. And then I asked this question. Let's say that she sees him, she gets a bad feeling, she walks back in, and the guy follows her in. Did not pull a knife now. No knife. He just follows her in. And as she watches him, she notices he's staring her down, making her uncomfortable. But he hasn't pulled a knife and said nothing threatening. He's just looking at her. Is it against the law to look at someone? Nope. So here's the question. Don't get mad. I don't write the laws, but I have to enforce them as they're written. If the guy walks into the store following you, he's looking at you in a creepy way, and that's not against the law. Do we have a justified 911 call at this point? Yes or no? Type that into the comments. I want to see because you guys are pretty smart about these things. What do you think? Guys followed you, looking at you, creeping you out, but hasn't said anything threatening. Okay, so So I see no. Katie says yes. Edward says no. Natalie says no, probably not. Okay, so this is important. If you've heard nothing I've said so far, please don't miss this. I said that number 3 was to immediately call 911 to report any suspicious person, vehicle, or circumstance. I didn't say to call for a crime. Of course, we're going to call anytime we see a crime being committed. I'm talking about suspicious person. So this is a person who hasn't committed a crime that you know of. Otherwise, I'd say call for a crime. If anyone ever puts you in fear for your safety, the last thing we want you to do is take a chance with your safety. So yes, if you go in and someone's following you like that, if you don't have your phone, walk up to that front counter and say, can I use your phone? 911. Would you send an officer for a suspicious person? And that person will go poof. That person will disappear unless he really had no ill intention. If he didn't, he'd just say, hey, ma'am, I'm not trying to scare you. You look familiar to me. And he wouldn't run off before the police showed up. But if he's like this guy, who's an armed person who's going to try to rape you, yeah, he's going to get out of there quick. And you're safe. And now when the police come and we take the report, even if it took me 30 minutes to do that, my salary is like $45 an hour. So if it took me half an hour, that's less than $25 and nothing happened to you. Let me tell you something. Your parents are going to say money well spent. Good job, Plano PD. They don't want anything to happen to you. And so when she said she wanted to don't waste a police officer's time, how much time do you think had to be spent on that sexual assault report, the follow-up, the investigation, the trial? How many thousands of dollars? And don't get me wrong, you're worth it. We'll pay that money for you. But my goodness, wouldn't it be way better to call, stay safe, and a few minutes later, you're back on your road safe and nothing happened to you? So if you want to not waste a police officer's time, remember, immediately call 911 to report any suspicious person, vehicle, or circumstance. Questions for me? Oh, and I do remember I'm going to get to I still have when I start talking about things they can carry, we'll get to those pepper spray. Anything else other than the pepper spray, Rachel?
Yes, you answered one of them because someone asked, should I have the non-emergency police number on speed dial or dial 911 instead if I see someone suspicious? So your strategy answered that question. And then the second question we got was, would deadly force be warranted if it was the scenario you talked about, a guy with a gun trying to get you into the car, as long as you had training, that is?
Yes, you can. No one can use deadly force. They're using deadly force with a gun. You're in this case, a young lady, and she can defend herself. If someone's using deadly force on you, you can use deadly force to prevent yourself from being attacked, raped, shot. So you can use that force to protect yourself from deadly. We can use deadly force to protect ourselves from illegal deadly force from someone else.
And that's the only questions we've got so far.
All right, let's talk about some things that you can do to increase your safety. Walking and jogging when you're out and about, and this is not even I'm talking about walking on campus, walking in the store. This is like a criminal's dream scenario, because if I were to ask you, hey, describe this guy so we can arrest him, you can't even give me a description of this person. So criminals love to creep around in the darkness and would love to find you running around the darkness. So I'm going to tell you that this is not really a good, safe idea. Instead, go to the light. I would recommend you go out in the light because, number one, it's going to keep you safer. You can see where you're going, less likely to fall, but in what we call crime prevention terminology, natural surveillance. Other people can see you, and other people could see if that guy ran up on you and tried to attack you, and then they could come to your aid by calling 911. The other thing we want to make sure that we avoid, being in the light's not enough. We also have to avoid being isolated. There was a sad story that came out of New York about Karina Vetrano. Let's listen in on what happened with her.
The parents of a New York woman sexually assaulted and killed while jogging, coming face to face with her alleged killer in court. After months of searching for what officials described as a needle in a haystack, one officer's hunch finally led police to a suspect in this violent crime. Here's ABC's Mark Giovacampo.
This is the last known footage of Karina Vetrano. Surveillance video taken just moments before the 30-year-old New York City woman was beaten and strangled to death while on a late afternoon run.
We need to find this predator.
Now, more than 6 months after the grisly murder,
Chanel, why'd you do it? Why'd you kill her?
police say they found the needle in the haystack, tracking down the man they believe is responsible. 20-year-old Chanel Lewis lived 3.5 miles away from the crime scene with his mother.
Follow-up investigation developed forensic evidence linking him to the crime. Lewis was interviewed by detectives and made detailed, incriminating statements and admissions. Charges are now pending. This is a very good day for justice in New York City.
Back here at home, the mystery murder of a jogger killed in New York City.
Back in August, the New York City murder grabbed national headlines. The story of the beautiful young woman with a large social media following, never to be seen alive again.
Right now, there's evidence of strangulation, asphyxiation.
She just never stopped smiling over the course of 4 years that I knew her.
She lit up the room when she walked in.
Her father, her usual running partner, stayed home that day because of a back injury. He grew concerned after he couldn't reach his daughter shortly after she set out on her run. The retired firefighter calling the police and joining them on the search for Karina. He was the one to find her body, face down in a marsh, 15 feet away from the trail, just 4 hours after she left her home.
It is wrong to kill an innocent young woman.
Vetrano's mother issuing a fiery promise to the killer.
I guarantee you, you will pay forever.
He was caught and he was charged, but what a terrible thing for that family. So what can we do? Well, one of the things we can do is to utilize the buddy system. So you are definitely safer if you have someone with you. So try to have someone you can take with you. And if you can't find a human buddy, well, you know, dogs are great. You know, criminals, they ask criminals, these burglars, they say, what would stop you from breaking into a house? The second thing that was a deterrent for them was dogs. They did not like dogs. There was this guy that I called a professional rapist because he raped 75 women in 11 different states. And he said if he saw they had a dog, he would not go to that house. So if you have a dog, take that dog out there with you. And situational awareness is something you want to if the best thing you can do is trust your intuition, the second best thing you do is be aware of what's going on around you, not only with your eyes, but also with your ears. I know it's a lot funner to go jogging and have your tunes with you. We want you to be able to enjoy your tunes, but we don't want you to tune out. So in this picture, we've got a young man who's got an earbud in just one ear. The young lady's got it in both, and you're better to have it in one ear, and if you can, in no ears, you definitely want to keep that sense of hearing so you'll be able to hear if someone runs up on you. That guy did run up on Karina, and that also happened with the UT Austin person. So there is safety in numbers. When you can stay in groups, that is a great thing to do. It will increase your ability to stay safe. So let's talk about some protective equipment. There was a police officer who was walking and he fell. He was looking for someone. He fell into something, got trapped, was hanging upside down by a log, and he was able to get some help by using a whistle. So you want to get a good strength whistle like the crossing guards or police officers, but having a whistle might be something that you could utilize. Also, someone had there's a product called Run Angel, and what this is, it's not actually a watch. It's actually you push a button there and it gives a GPS location to where you are and let people know that you've signaled for help. So that's something that you can purchase. You can go online and look at Run Angel. They've got YouTube videos to show that. Also apps, there's a Be Smart app, and this is just one example of an app. We'll watch a quick video on this, but there's many different types of apps that you can use with your phone. But here's an example.
Phone apps, smart tech is everywhere. And as ABC 15's Simon Williams shows us, some of it can save your life.
We would always encourage people to look at different ways to keep yourself safe.
One app we found is called Be Safe. It has an SOS feature activated by voice or by pressing it. It immediately sends a GPS coordinate to a preset list of contacts and then begins to live stream audio and video to that list. Those files are then recorded so you can access them after an event, which Corporal Vest says always would help a case.
Anytime anybody does have any photos or video of an incident, we always encourage them to share that with us.
Okay, again, there's lots of, you will just search the different sites for safety apps. There's a lot of different apps to choose from. Too many for us to feature them all, but that's just a sample of apps. So what about pepper spray? There was a young lady who told me her pepper spray story. Her father got her a pepper spray, got her a little small canister, but he got the police strength canister and put it on her keychain. He said, the reason I have it on your keychain is that this pepper spray is going to do you no good at the bottom of your purse. And so anytime you get out of your car, take your keys with you and have your thumb on this pepper spray on top of that cap so you can go underneath that cap if you need to use it. And being the dutiful daughter that she was, that's what she did. And one fine day, she was pumping gas, and all of a sudden she felt like something behind her, and she turned around and looked, and there was a man, she said, covered in blood. And he said, can I have a ride? And she said, no. He shoved her against the car, and he pulled her pants so hard that the button popped off, and the teeth and the zipper started came apart, and he started trying to pull down her pants right there at the pumps. And she had the pepper spray right in her hand, so she just sprayed him right in the eyes. And the guy falls to the ground screaming. He's rolling around, giving her plenty of time to take that nozzle out and get her cap back on, get in her vehicle, and took off because she had her pepper spray. So I think pepper spray is a great idea. Now, anytime that I talk to someone about pepper spray, the question comes up about wasp spray. They say, hey, what do you think about that wasp spray? I heard that's really good. So I wasn't sure. So I asked the officers that train the police officers in the academy, hey, I keep getting questions about this wasp spray. What do you think? And they told me, listen, you tell those people asking that if the foe that they're fighting happens to be a great big wasp, well, go ahead and use that wasp spray. But if who they're fighting happens to be a person, well, why not use what's been tested and tried on person to be very effective, which is the pepper spray? So I share that with you for your consideration. Okay, the pepper spray that we use is this MK3, and civilians can buy that as well. And when it comes to pepper spray, there's one that I really liked. I heard about this pepper spray that's pretty expensive. Matter of fact, the most expensive pepper spray I heard is called DAD, which is Defense Alert Device. And I bought 3 of these, one for my wife, one for my daughter off at college, and one for myself so I could show you what it looked like. And what it does, it works with your phone. And when you spray the pepper spray, it sends out an alert. First off, a crowd alert to everyone who's got one of the apps for within a mile. And then it also sends it to, I think, 5 or 6 people that you can designate that they will be told you have sprayed that, and they will be given your GPS coordinates. So here's a video on this product. Let's listen in.
The DAD is hands down the greatest device for personal protection. It is fantastic for walking, jogging, hiking, biking. I wear it on my hand every day while I'm mountain biking. I can go over jumps, do anything I want, and it's right there if I need it. The GPS location alert technology is far more advanced than anything else out there, and the ability to take on multiple attackers and incapacitate them is unmatched. It is 1,000 times more likely to be in your hand, remain in your hand during a violent encounter, and incapacitate the attacker. The Tiger-like technology has proven on the streets to have over 96% stop rate, far exceeding anything else on the market. Nothing else even comes close. So why not get the very best for your family so they can come home safely?
Like I said, I looked at that product and liked it very much so that I bought 3. I think they even gave me a discount for buying 3. Okay, so tasers are another option. People ask about tasers. You can get a taser. This has a safety device on this taser. There's a little pin that goes in the bottom of the device. So that strap, if someone actually pulls on that device out of your hand, it will disengage that pin from the device, and now they can't turn around and use it on you. And it's something that can be a very good aid. Keep in mind that when you tase someone, after that shock gets off, they might have more adrenaline come at you. So pepper spray might have more of a long-lasting effect because it might be an irritant bothering their eyes. So it's something to consider. So someone mentioned karate, self-defense, and I really am a big advocate of self-defense, but you know, self-defense is a skill that requires practice. Now, if you're in the Plano area, we've got some great martial arts studios around here. There's Saxon Janjiri, who is a 6-time world kickboxing Muay Thai champion out of Thailand. He's got a studio right there at Parker and Independence. Jiu-Jitsu, the Carlos Machado is you've probably heard that most fights will go to the ground. And when it comes to ground fighting, the Machados and the Gracies are fantastic. Another system that is noteworthy is Krav Maga. And they have a system here with kind of realistic type things. And in case there's anybody there's 3 things that are pretty key principles in almost every system. And that's the best thing you can do is avoid the confrontation. The best thing, if you can walk away or run away, that's your best option. The next best thing is to de-escalate the situation. And the last resort is you're going to fight if need be, but you also want to fight within the parameters of the law. So if someone comes up and just pushes you, well, it's really hard to pull out a gun or a knife and, you know, justify that deadly force. So that's why it's sometimes nice to have some skills. And if online is something you're looking for, my wife just recently enrolled for this Gracie. This is the Gracie family. And here's a short video. It's about a 6-minute video, but we'll watch just a little bit of it and I'll come back in and talk to you. Let's listen in.
In a perfect world, women wouldn't need self-defense because men wouldn't perpetrate these crimes. But the world is far from perfect. Yeah. The most important self-defense tool that all women possess is the ability to set boundaries, verbal, physical, and psychological. The challenge is that most women won't establish boundaries that they don't feel capable of enforcing. And that's where the Women Empowered program comes into the equation. Yeah.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu has been used to defeat larger opponents for over 80 years. But until we created the Women Empowered program, it hadn't yet served its most important purpose. Law enforcement studies reveal that sexual predators follow a very specific 4-phase strategy when carrying out their assaults. In the Women Empowered program, we've identified the 15 most common threat scenarios, and we've divided them into 10 one-hour lessons. Women cycle through these lessons as many times as necessary to develop the muscle memory to execute the techniques without hesitation. At the end of the course, women take a test, and if their reflexes are on point, they earn their pink belt, a special belt that we created to signify successful completion of this amazing program.
Physical techniques are critical, but it's equally important to understand the psychology of an assault. One of the most important things we discuss is intention assessment. Let's say I'm alone at a gas station and a man from a nearby bus stop gets up and starts walking directly towards me. And I assert myself and I tell him to stop. And he continues to walk towards me. What do I know at that exact moment? I know that he has bad intentions. And once I know his intentions, I can start preparing for his actions. But until I set a boundary, his intentions are unknown. Boundaries are everything.
Women Empowered is so different because they teach us the scalability of jiu-jitsu and the psychology of an attack, whether it's somebody you know or somebody you don't know. And so it's so applicable at work because I know these people, I have to be around these people, but I have the right to be confident and be comfortable no matter who I'm around.
What makes jiu-jitsu perfect for women is that it's the only martial art that effectively addresses what to do when the fight goes to the ground. And if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that the attacker will do everything in his power to get us there.
My daughter and I signed up at the Gracie Academy because she's going to be going to college next year, and I felt much more comfortable with her having some self-defense training before being on college campus. I feel much better about her going off to college next year, and I feel safer myself too on the street.
At the end of the day, we know that victory is getting home safely. The
Gracie family, they are fantastic. Again, one of the keys that you want to do is have your situational awareness with you at all time. utilizing that buddy system when you're walking around campus, wherever you can, particularly if you're leaving the library late at night or anything like that. They also have, a lot of the campuses will have police officers you can call, and you can actually call and ask for an escort to your dorm. So there's a lot of resources available to you. Sometimes they even have volunteers that do that. Being distracted is a really big dream of the criminal. So avoid that at all cost. And then be careful. You've heard people putting like these date rape drugs inside your drinks. And so you probably know that you're not going to ever put a drink down and go dance and come back and pick up that drink. Because if someone slips in some kind of date rape drug, next thing you know, you're passing out and they just carry you off and bad things happen. And so in the same way, you want to watch for things like this. Recently, a woman had a tracker she found in her purse. So someone has slipped in a small little tracker, GPS tracker, to be able to track where she lives. So watch your purse. We're going to talk about property safety as well. Lock, take, and hide. This is for your car. I cannot tell you. So number one property crime in Plano is these burglary of motor vehicles. People are leaving laptops and purses and all these things in their vehicle, or getting cash out from the bank and then leaving the envelope in the car. They call it a jugging offense. Do not leave anything valuable in your car. If it's valuable to you, it's valuable to someone else. And when it comes to your dorms, lock those doors and windows. And if you've got these blinds, a lot of campuses will have just a blind like this. Well, you notice that as we go close like this, you can actually see through that blind and you can see the person inside. But when I look like this, I can see everything. And so with a cell phone, somebody can come up, put their cell phone right on this little hole, and they can film right inside your apartment. So you need to have window coverings. You need drapes or blinds that come down and cover this. If you can't during the day, if you see the light and you can look through and you can see out during the day, that means at night someone can come up to your window. When you have your lights on, they can look through this hole. Instead, make sure you have drapes or something that covers those holes. And if you cannot see out during the day, then they can't see in at night. But watch those windows, particularly if you're on the first floor. Okay. And with that, I think I'm going to be ready for questions, Miss Rachel.
Yeah. Should you carry your cell phone in your hand visibly?
Okay, I didn't hear the question.
Should you carry your cell phone in your hand visibly?
Okay, well, it all depends. It depends if you have someone walking around wanting to steal a cell phone. So sometimes I think it's even safer, if you have a phone in your hand, which you don't want to be doing this, you might be even safer on the phone with your safety buddy. As you're walking to, what I would do is I had my wife, she would call me when she was leaving her college campus, and she would call me and keep me on the phone when she would leave the building. She said, okay, I'm walking to the car now. She would walk to the car. She was scanning. She had her head on a swivel. She was looking left and right. If something came up, she would tell me, hold on, I got a black F-150 copy license plate number, David Paul Victor 25Z Zebra. And she'd give me a description. That never happened. Instead, she would just walk to her car. Once she was safely in, doors locked, and she was driving home, we would hang up unless we had something to talk about. But you can talk to your safety buddy. Your safety buddy should know where you are, what you look like, the kind of vehicle you drive. And if you scream, they know their job is to call 911 and get that report in right away. See if we can get someone in there to help you. Question.
You were talking about earlier pumping gas, and I know you talked about this in your property safety course. Is it a good idea to keep your keys on you and lock your doors while pumping gas?
Absolutely. And you want to keep if you've got your purse in the car, that door should be locked, because sliders, they pull up, they call them sliders. They pull up, they open the passenger door, they snatch the purse off of that thing, or they take something else, or you're pumping gas, guy jumps in your car and just takes off with your car. So you want to have your car turned off, door shut, door locked. And if someone walks up and tries to push you in the car, you're not going to go in the car. That's why it's good. Your doors are already locked. He can't grab the door. If your door is unlocked, he can pull the door open, grab you, shove you in. And when you finish pumping the gas, you're going to be aware of your surroundings and look and make sure you don't open the door, start getting in, and the guy shoves you in and jumps in beside you. So being aware of that surrounding, but keeping that door locked at the pumps and securing your property, great idea.
We got one more question.
Okay.
Is it okay to sit in your car while getting gas?
You can. I'd jump in your car and I would lock your car. And then I'd be aware of your surroundings as you go to get out of your car. Make sure someone's not going to, do the same thing and jump in or something like that. And when you also walk into your car, most car doors, when you push the button once, it opens just the driver's door. And if you push it 2 times, it opens all the doors. So if someone's coming up and he's on the other side of your car, and you just want to open your driver's door, get that shut, lock your doors, and get out of there. That saved a lot of people by not opening all the doors at once. Any other questions, Rachel, before I wrap up?
That is all we have right now.
All right. So we're going to talk about, we got a couple upcoming programs. We have any parents viewing in. We're going to be talking about protecting children on September the 13th. And remember, even if your kids, if this is your youngest child going off to college, you've heard the expression, it takes a village to raise a child, but it keeps a community to keep a child safe. Remember the story of Zoe Hastings. The witness wasn't related at all. Zoe wasn't that witness's child. So we would love to have you tune in for that. And then we're going to have October 11th, identity theft, frauds, and scams. And we'll be talking about that. So remember to begin with the end in mind. I want to end with a story that's dear to my heart. I had a son who graduated from SMU. He went actually for his bachelor's degree and his master's degree. He got his bachelor's degree in finance, his master's degree in accounting. And he won the prestigious Eliza Watts Award. And he never had any problem in college. And the reason was he just went there and studied and studied and studied. And I would tell you, they've done a lot of studies on these sexual assaults. You know what they found? Every college campus had some kind of training on sexual assault. But you know what they also found? Is that the training didn't reduce the sexual assaults. And they found a correlation, something that seemed to be present with most of these sexual assaults, like high 80, 90%, and that was alcohol. So my best advice to you is avoid those alcohol parties and to focus on your studies. So in the end, we can celebrate the goal, which is to have you get your education and be off to a successful life. My name is Chris Bianez. It's been an honor being with you today.